Oh, hello there. I was just reading this newspaper, and it says here that the Barbados Light and Power Company is celebrating 100 years of electricity in Barbados. And it says here, electricity powering our nation's progress since 1911. I remember how it was when we had no electricity in Barbados. It makes me go back to think. We didn't have any electricity in our homes. Of course, we knew a little bit about it because we would see it on ships and we would see it in the factories, but we had no practical experience about that. Oil lamps and lanterns and smut lamps is what we had. And of course, they only gave off a yellowish flickering light. They were dangerous too. Many houses got burnt because of those flickering lights, but it is all that we had. But you know, the nights used to be black. We used to love moonlight nights because then you could stay outside a little bit longer and watch your mother tell stories. Not only yours, but all the people in the village would gather together and tell stories. All the ghost stories that had you frightened to go to bed after, you know. Ooh. And then sometimes we played games, you know the old-time games like Roro, Nanny, and Cat, Catch a Corner, things like that. Those were wonderful days. But in the household, with the work, it was difficult work. Talk about ironing clothes. Heavy, heavy irons you had to use. And not even on an ironing board. You had a flat table like this. Imagine the iron on the hot coals. You couldn't hold it with your hand. You had to hold it with a thick pad like this. And you try to spread out the clothes on the ironing board and try to get them as smooth as you could. This was difficult work because sometimes the coal pot was in the yard and you had to go to and fro. Thank the Lord for electric irons now. It is so much easier. And talk about washing machines. Nobody even heard about a washing machine. The work was over a jucking board. Washing clothes, especially those heavy khaki pants and shirts, and sheets and pillowcases and curtains. Oh, that was so difficult. And especially if you had no water in the house, you had to go and bring it first. Life was really, really hard. Then, of course, there was no refrigerators. We had to salt the fish in order to keep it, well, not fresh, but salted. And then you had to wash the salt out when you were ready to use it. A lot of salt meat people use and various ways of keeping food fresh. But there was nothing called a refrigerator in my day. On Sundays, the ice truck would come through the village and the towns, and people with ice boxes would buy large blocks of ice to go inside of the ice box. Of course, it is lined with metal on the inside so that the ice would be kept preserved, and it would cool all the little things like butter and all that inside of the ice box. Most people had a larder, like this one, where they stored all of the other food supplies, like salt meat and condensed milk. And of course, for baking, we always used a mixing bowl like this. This bowl and sizes over and sizes under were used for mixing cake and so on. It was on the 17th of June 1911 when electricity first came to Bridgetown. Can you imagine how people flocked to town to see these lights, magnificent lights? Can you imagine the excitement as people caught buses from the north of the island? Some of them walked and stayed at relatives just to see the lights in Bridgetown. Only in 1935 did those lights start to move into the countryside as the electric supply company expanded. But people were poor. They were a little bit skeptical at first about this new electricity, but then they started to realize its benefits. And so When somebody in the village bought a radio, everybody wanted a radio. People started to realize the benefits of electricity, and gradually it spread. Today, we cannot do a thing without electricity. In our homes, radio, television, internet, everyone able to connect to the rest of the world at the click of a mouse. Outside there, we have an airport and a seaport and hotels that welcome tourists. The tourist industry booming. Barbados is developing. Have you ever seen Barbados at night as you arrive here on a flight? Absolutely beautiful. Electricity didn't just happen. It took a lot of experiments, a lot of people thinking about it and developing it, a lot of research to get it to where it is today. And now I invite you to move on and enjoy the rest of the exhibition as you learn about those people who developed electricity.